bit of hill action here. Okay, now I'm out of that clusterfuck back there. Hey guys, Ness here. In Victoria, BC, and I'm running the race committee for the 2013 Oregon Offshore. It's a yacht race from Astoria, Oregon to Victoria, BC, up the Washington coast. It's about 193 nautical miles. And, well, I'm going to do a cycle vlog here, and once I get going, I'll tell you guys why. So, finish line is from here, this little sign here, over to that point over. The original plan was to bring the KTM, and I was going to go on some dual sport rides with Ride Victoria up here, and it just didn't work out though. So sorry Kim. I'm hoping that I'm thinking about bringing my bike down here if it gets done though for Swiftsure in a couple weeks, and just kind of partaking in the festivities and getting on a couple rides with you if you're around. So looking forward to that. And during this race, the Oregon Offshore, my dad and I, we sailed together, and he's actually sailing the race right now. He's out there in the Strait, not a lot of wind. So watching him on the race tracker, hopefully it picks up for him out there. But 2 years ago when we were doing this race in 2011, we had just started the Oregon Offshore right out of Astoria, and things were going. It was a bright, nice, sunny day. We had just started, the 10 o'clock start. We were like half hour into the race. Wind's kind of cranking on pretty good, starting to at least. Had our 3/4 ounce kite up, big for those non-sailing folk, and probably most of you guys don't know what that is, but the big colorful kites are the spinnakers, and that's exactly what they are. It's a big parachute or a kite out there that helps the boat move downwind. We had just kind of got everything on the foredeck, or the bow, the forward portion of the boat, kind of all settled, and brought the crew back, and we were just kind of getting into a rhythm. The strangest thing in my life ever happened that day. It's a humpback whale. It was, I think it was a juvenile, still fairly large animal. Came breaching off the starboard side of our boat. Full breach. That sucker must have been, probably started his dive from like, oh, Oh, yeah, I should go down there. So that humpback whale came out full breach and went about, it was probably only, I would say 5 to 10 feet, if probably more like 5 feet off the starboard side, off our starboard beam. So midsection of the boat, and starboard being the right hand side. This thing literally came up and then went about 3/4 of the way up the mast and then proceeded to fall forward and in onto the starboard side of the boat. I was driving at the time, and I let out the biggest oh shit you've ever heard in your life. So it all happened so fast. I can remember seeing, just in slow motion almost, and thinking I was gonna die. I was pretty positive actually that I wouldn't survive this. And you could just see this huge, damn thing comes up. Our mast is just raining down on us. Literally just raining. Gear, sails, all of a sudden it's over and our mast is hanging in the water. The boat lurched. I mean, it violently went to starboard when the whale landed on the starboard side. And then after the whale kind of rolled off the side of the boat, I think it actually smacked our keel and we rolled to port so hard. One of our crew members got thrown right in the back of the cockpit and nailed his head on the boom pretty good. Nothing serious. The wheel was laced with leather, and that wheel, like where I was holding it on a death grip, the lacing had broken and the leather was all bunched up. So just a second here. Like I said, it's kind of weird doing this. So yeah, probably the same walkway that I'm not supposed to be on a bike with, but oh well, I just want to go down and take a look, right? Nothing, no harm in that. Nice and quiet down here. Ooh, a little beach. So, a little view of Olympic Mountains over there in Washington. Port Angeles is on the other side there. Kind of like, well, I'll be a good boy and not poach the, oh, you're fine. Not poach the Canadian pedestrian walkway there. God, I think you're like on a bicycle, you can go anywhere. You can't even go anywhere on a bicycle. So anyways, back to the story. Like, this is gonna be a really long cycle vlog, but so yeah, after the boat violently rolls back and forth, we kind of get everything settled and the mast is hanging underneath us. The mast is kind of hanging underneath the boat with the sails full of water. And it's pulling the boat. kind of rocking the boat back and forth. And, you know, we're about 5 miles offshore. Well, maybe not 5, maybe a couple miles. I mean, we're fairly close in still, but I mean, by in no means close to, you know, close to any way you could swim. I mean, we're still in the ocean, right? Luckily, it was a nice sunny day. So, you know, we started going into action, cutting, you know, I was trying to cut all these lines away, and I had just bought a couple of these sails for the boat. Half the lines are brand new. I mean, to set a boat up to do these races is so much money, it's unbelievable. And it's just almost, you know, it was like heartbreaking to, you know, take my knife out and start cutting the stuff away. But I mean, it's gone, it's done. So we start cutting everything away, and then we got to get rid of, we had the rigging, the shrouds that hold the mast, the support, the supports for the mast. They can either be cable or they can be rod rigging. And in our case, it was rod rigging. So it's, you know, it's hauled down for the hacksaw. And we had a guy that was fairly new on board, and he brought the hacksaw up, and my dad gave him the tungsten carbide blade to go with it so that we could actually cut through the alloy. But he was so nervous and everything that was going on that he left the blade in the one that we needed in his back pocket, and it was just a wooden blade on the hacksaw. And I'm asking him for the tungsten carbide blade, and he didn't know what I was talking about. And it's not his fault. I mean, pretty scary thing to, you know, for your first ocean race to undergo. And basically muscling through the rigging with a set of cable cutters. So check your guys' angle here. So yeah, muscling through with cable cutters. Start muscling through with these cable cutters and snapping all this rod rigging off it. I basically broke the cable cutters on the last piece of rod rigging, and at that point in time, a few boats had stopped sailing and hung out in the area where we were at after they caught up to us, and just make sure that we were okay. And there's also a lot of Coast Guard lifeboats out of Cape Disappointment that day that were doing drills. And so we had sent a, you know, we didn't know how bad things were, so we sent an immediate mayday. And finally a lifeboat got up to us, and I yelled over for a hacksaw, and they tied a hacksaw on this line and threw it over, and so we hauled that thing aboard and got through that last piece of rod rigging, and then finally got the boat kind of taken, you know, deep sixed our rig in the bottom of the Pacific. Actually, the Coast Guard said, "You can't dump that," and we're like, "Well, we can't pull it out of the water. Do you want it?" And the guy looks at his captain, and he's just like, "No way." And so they hook us up, and they're just going to escort us back in. We still had our motor, so we fired up our diesel and started going back in. But we're fighting an ebb tide, which is when the tide's coming out, and on the Columbia River bar, which is it can be a fairly gnarly bar at times. It wasn't that day, but it was still an ebb tide where we weren't making any progress over the ground, no matter, even though we were, you know, had our engine at full blast. So they hooked us up and started towing us in, and then towed us in extremely too fast, where we thought like the boat was just gonna, you know, I mean, these boats are only made to go so fast. At least, you know, the boat that we were on, it's not a full-on race boat. It's kind of meant to, it's kind of a performance cruiser. But regardless, we got in, and actually there was a Coast Guard was there to meet us because he heard about what happened. We told him we got hit by a whale, and so he was there with a video camera and to kind of, you know, document the whole thing. and we had pieces of whale blubber on the side of the boat. Okay, what are we doing here? Okay. We had all these pieces of whale blubber on the side of the boat. I did this, went over the story, and he filmed it and actually released it onto the Associated Press, which got a hold of the story. And the thing went like viral. Like, I mean, it ended up in like the Times of India, the Times columnist, which is, I think, Times columnist out of here in Victoria, or was that like Britain or something? I mean, it went all over the world. I mean, it was, you know, it wasn't something that remained viral, but it went viral quick and then kind of petered out. And I'm sure a lot of people didn't really believe our story, and you know, and of course, you know, I think that right before that trip we were talking about, you know, oh, we should get, you know, they just kind of started coming out with the GoPros then, and I didn't have one yet, and I was like, man, it would be cool to have a GoPro. And right before the trip we were talking about that. Go on. So, I don't know how this is going to work here with it. I thought they had someone at the gate the whole time. Anyways, so we're gonna have to do a lot of editing on this thing. Otherwise, it's gonna be like 1 million hours long. You know, documented what was, you know, what happened, and and then I was like, we were walking up to the bar, and it's like all I really wanted. Oh, we've got some beers here. So I get this call from Channel 2, which is a local news area, and they wanted to do an interview. And they actually had someone, they had actually sent a news van down to Astoria to you know, get the story. And so I remember we got up to the bar. I think I had one beer, didn't even get a chance to order my food, and ended up. And it was fine. I mean, you know, I was just like, when we first get in, I was just so stressed out, and I just really wanted to go, just more than anything, really wanted to go get a beer and burger. I mean, it was exhausting, you know, like what we went through. And then I got a call from a paper, and they asked, I think it was the Astoria Times, or the Times of Astoria or something like that, the local paper there. And so they called me and did a little phone interview, and just what a crazy weekend. It was, I mean, and then we went back to this bar called the Portway, and at the Portway, they have all these Coast Guard life rings, and they had all these Coast Guard life rings like in there, and a little like signatures on them. So we took the horseshoe off the boat, and brought that up and signed it, and got pictures with the bartender, and yeah, I mean, so yeah, that's my story. It was kind of long and drawn out, but basically we got hit by a goddamn whale. We sent off the whale blubber to the Hatfield Marine Science Center I think it's out of Newport Bay in Oregon, where I'm from, and it came back as a male humpback. By the size of it, I think it was probably a juvenile. I mean, it was big, obviously it was a whale, but it wasn't as big as it could have been. I mean, It was kind of weird too, because it was really close in. I mean, it was only a couple miles offshore. I mean, the water out there isn't that terribly deep. Usually they like deeper water. But yeah, so there's my story of getting hit by a whale.